and benefits. But for the man particularly, as far as Islam goes, the, the men are the head of the household. You understand? They have of the family, and therefore they are responsible for maintenance, for taking care of the house, taking care of the family. So therefore, they must be able to perform their obligations, financial obligations, biological obligations, or material obligations. So if one therefore must be able to, financially, biologically, and also spiritually take care of the family home. Okay. And therefore, the first point that comes to mind before one gets to marry is, will you be able to sustain it, to sustain the house or the family? Because you don't expect your father or your uncle or your friends to continue to support you with your wife, and you produce children. They continue to produce to help you yourself, your wife, and your children. You must be responsible. At some point, you must learn to be responsible. So if you are, therefore, the most important condition is one must be able to fulfill those conditions. Okay. And if you are not able to fulfill the condition, start with how answering this question first. How do I take care of my obligations? Okay. If you are a jobless person, go and look for a job. If you need better education, for the education. Okay. You understand? If you need to go into any kind of vocational training, go about it. But you must have, develop a particular methodology or method by which you will be able to earn something, to be able to perform your obligations. Wallahu alam.
Most of the youths we see in the streets, in most cases, will, especially those not married, will try to lean on the basis that they don't have any means of supporting themselves, talk less of a woman. Now, do you need to be rich or go to Europe before you should get married?
No, you don't have to be. And the argument they advance always that they cannot sustain themselves, that argument is flawed, because
if you what they spend, some of them what they spend monthly is too huge to take care of two families.
Yes, I'm telling you. When they go to nightclubs, even the attire rules that they attend every day. You understand? And those that want to go to Europe also to the back door, if they tell you the amount of money they spend, my friend, 1/4 of that money, if one would have taken it to the Serekunda market or any other, or invested in a particular, income and activity, you become somebody who's very successful in life, or must be able to take care of whatever responsibility bestowed upon him. So I think there's this laziness syndrome or tendency that people tend to be lazy, and they don't want to take themselves out of that laziness, and eventually they now blame destiny. They say, oh, it's Allah who destined me to be so. But it is not true to say it's Allah who destined to be so, because Allah has given you all the faculties. Allah has provided you with all the opportunities. What one need to do is one must be able to identify one's potentials, and then you make use of the best use of those potentials, and therefore get yourself into any meaningful income and activity. Wallahu alam.
What are those pillars of marriage?
Yes, like we said before, let me go back to again, offer and acceptance. Marriage is contractual by nature. It's a contract, it's an agreement, it's a contractual obligation. And therefore, at least one of the parties must express interest. And this teaches you a very important lesson, that naturally, this is not an act which is usually conducted by force. In other words, there's no compulsion in marriage. Of course, there are exceptions. There are some exceptions when it comes to this particular issue. But the general rule is, because it's contractual in nature, the general rule, therefore, is optional. You understand? And then you come to, from the offer and acceptance, then there must be a guardian. Because in Islam, a man cannot marry himself somebody else's daughter, and a woman also cannot get herself into a marital situation. There must be a guardian, and the authority, the number one authority when it comes to guardianship is the father. If the father is alive, the father, even the brothers, uncles, and so on and so forth, up to the imam. There may be situations where the imam of the community is the responsible authority to conduct the marriage. So in other words, there must be a guardian, or there must be a parent or somebody responsible for contracting the marriage. And then dowry is a basic condition. And dowry is you either present it on the day of marriage or you mention it. One of them must happen. They either come with the dowry, 5,000, 3,000, 2,000, and or they mention it, well, we agreed to pay this particular amount, we are hereby giving this much of it, and then in few weeks or days time, we'll complete the rest. And when it comes to dowry, there's minimum. The minimum amount is what they call rubu or dinar or salasul drahim. And this is the 3% of 200 dirham. You remember when you discussed zakat, we said the original dirham, the taxable amount was 200, and you understand. And these 200 today in our dalasi, and we said that if you want to know the equivalent of in local currency, you have to know the quantity in terms of silver. And when we got to the calculation in terms of silver, we came to something like 14,875. So 3% of this, if you're a good mathematician, 3% of 18,000 or 14,875 is the minimum. The maximum has no limit. You can give billions if you want to give, but again, you have to. One has. It must be sensible. You understand? Like what happened today in our society, people lavishly spending money during marriage ceremonies. Lavishly. That is not in line with Sunnah. The Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ is that أَيْسَرَهُنَّ مُهْرًا أَعْظَمُهُنَّ بَرَكَةً. The less the cost, the more reasonable the dowry, the more blessed it becomes. That is the tradition. But there is no limit as far as the maximum is concerned. But that is the minimum. And then, of course, the parties, as I explained, and then the marriage also must be conducted in accordance with the teaching of Islam. So, there are certain words like we hereby ask for somebody's hand in marriage, and the people are hereby give my daughter's hand in marriage in accordance with the Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But don't go and mention a Marabout's name. You understand? Let me take my cousins in the Jaras. So this is Alaji Sedikan, Alaji Sedikan, Alaji Sedikan. The marriage is contracted. No, that is not marriage. Marriage has to be conducted in accordance with well-stipulated principles of Islam, like the examples I have given. And the way our people do it traditionally. You understand? Okay. We hereby, ask the hands of your daughter in marriage. And he said, I hereby give you the hands of my daughter in marriage in accordance
with the Sunnah of
Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But don't say anything which is not in line with this teaching of Islam. Wallahu alam.
Ustaz, before we go for our first break, you talked about marriage as a contract. But if you look at the underlying meaning of this word social contract, you come to understand that people try to translate it in the Western context, right? Where a man has equal rights, like a woman has equal rights like a man, to seek someone else's hand in marriage. They all contribute equally, and the marriage is based on 50-50. I do this, you do this. Is that what you're trying to explain here?
No. In fact, this 50-50, even in the conventional sense, even in the Western sense, 50-50 is a confused concept. It's not clear, and there's nothing like 50-50 situation. What I am trying to refer to in Islam here is, I may translate, let me borrow the terminology of equitable equality. There must be equality with equity. There are mutual obligations, and some of them, the roles or the obligations vary from the man to the woman, or from the sexual orientation of the man and that of the woman. And what Islam will emphasize upon is that you must know what as a husband, you must know your responsibility, that you are responsible for feeding the wife, clothing, preparing, taking, and provision of housing and so on, medical costs and so on and so forth, all those things. Upbringing of the children, taking care of that's the woman's responsibility, and so on and so forth. So each of them has his or her responsibility as provided for in Islam, and each of them is equally obliged to fulfill those obligations. This is where equality will come in the picture. Man is no more responsible than the woman. The woman is no more responsible than the man in this particular. Every one of them is equally responsible to perform his or her obligations. So that's why I say equitable equality. So it is equality with equity. So if you cannot say that this is what my wife should cook, my wife should do this for me, this is your responsibility, and then you fold your hands and saying that because I'm the master of the house, or because I'm the head of the family, God is going to forgive me. No. You are going to be accounted for what you are responsible for. And the woman also is going to be accounted for what she is responsible for. So the obligations and the responsibilities are mutual